Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Me, Chet Martin here, joined as always by the redneck Brian Bro.
Still a little under the weather.
And the fearless one himself, C.V. Burton.
What it is, where it is, and when it was.
You're back here on the Freedom Station at that freedom time of day, 3 p.m. on your Sunday. Welcome to Freedom on Deck. Well, I guess, we're going to talk about Kavanaugh, right? I mean, everybody's talking about Kavanaugh. That's what we're going to do. And so what just came out yesterday was the lawyers representing Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. F.O.D, as Savage likes to call her, say she has accepted the Senate Judiciary Committee's request to testify about her allegations against Supreme Court nominee pick Brett Kavanaugh. The Washington Post is reporting in a letter to the committee's counsel. Ford's lawyers wrote, although many aspects of the proposal you provided via email are fundamentally inconsistent with the committee's promise of a fair and impartial investigation into her allegations, we are disappointed with the leaks and the bullying that have tainted the process. We are hopeful that we can reach an agreement on the details. Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley proposed a Wednesday hearing during which Ford can speak to senators on the committee and Kavanaugh can formally respond. The lawmakers initially floated a Monday hearing, but Ford's attorneys have pushed back, to which Chuck Grassley originally put a red line out there demanding it to be Monday, and he went back on that. Of course, the Republicans are a bunch of ninnies. In a letter to the committee cited by CNN on Friday night, Ford's lawyer, Deborah Katz, wonderful Miss Katz, not from Katz Delicatessen, not a Reuben on Rye. She's about as trustworthy as a Reuben on Rye from Katz Delicatessen, but a Soros-paid employee, scolded the committee for taking what she called a cavalier attitude towards a sexual assault survivor who has been doing her best to cooperate with the committee. So this is going to happen this week. Me and CV kind of already have discussed this on the midweek podcast, so I'm going to go to you first, Brian. What do you make out of a woman who has sat on this story for 36 years, all the while Brett Kavanaugh is getting sworn in as a judge under George W. Bush and all the other accomplishments? Now, all of a sudden, 3 days prior to his confirmation, this comes out.
Listen, when he was becoming an attorney, she didn't say anything then. She didn't challenge his ability to practice law with these allegations. She didn't go to the Bar Association and say, hey, this man did this to me. When he was working in the Bush administration, she didn't come forward then. When he was nominated as a Circuit Court of Appeals judge, she didn't do it then. Why now?
Political hit job.
Why now? Exactly. And the thing that I like, and I was kind of talking to you before we started to do the show, is, the attorney and Ford making these requests, setting these guidelines to which they will come and testify, but, they have to meet all these requirements. And you're going, first off, that's not how our democracy works. You don't tell the judge, or in this case, the committee, what they are to bend and sway and succumb to your demands. No,
they're rewriting the rule of law.
Right. You don't do that. And the other thing is that the requests are blatant violations of the constitutional rights of Brett Kavanaugh. Mm-hmm. Okay? Brett Kavanaugh has the right to legal counsel.
And face his accuser.
Bottom line, he has the right to legal counsel. So the fact that she's saying no attorneys, well, that's a violation of his rights. Bottom line, he has the right to counsel and to representation. The other thing was what was the other request that they were making? Oh, of her going after him.
After.
If he goes first, he is answering questions of the committee that that they're going to ask. And then she goes and she can make allegations that he's not able to then answer.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
And second of all, they're also requesting that he not be in the same room, they not be in the same time. That's also making the rules up as you go. You can't do that. He has the right to face his accuser.
Exactly. And the other thing is it's like, she's playing this up like she was, and there are women out there that have been violently assaulted, raped, that are never going to be the same the rest of their life.
Yeah.
This woman is making a mockery of what other women go through in this country. She's acting as though he beat her within an inch of her life, violently raped her, and left her for dead.
She's acting like he did what Keith Ellison did.
It's like, give me a break.
Right. Yeah.
You're from her account, if you just listen to what she says, they all were drinking. Who knows if she was being flirtatious at all? Well, you don't know.
Well, hold on. First of all, Brett Kavanaugh says he was not there.
I'm just playing. I'm just playing to her.
Okay, but he says he wasn't there.
I understand. I'm just playing to her allegation. But who's to say that she wasn't being flirtatious and he took something out of context if he did this, right?
That's a good point.
If.
Who's to say it wasn't someone else?
Exactly.
If she was so intoxicated.
Because she can't even remember. And the other thing is that you have the two men that she states were at this party.
Denying it.
Both saying,
nope.
I have no recollection of any party.
Right.
That I went to that she was at.
Right.
Or Brett Kavanaugh doing any sort of thing like this ever. You have 75 women that just came out and had a
question and answer.
Yeah, question and answer, basically, and a news conference, basically. And they allowed the media in, and they spoke on behalf of Brett Kavanaugh, speaking to his character, speaking to his trustworthiness, and who he is as a man. You don't often find that for men who are dirtbags. You know what I mean? You don't find 200 women writing on behalf of Brett Kavanaugh and his character. You know what I'm saying?
The whole thing stinks. Listen, before the letter came out, which Miss Feinstein released, which was, she should not have done that.
Fanny Stain.
When she released it, all of Mrs. Ford's social media history wiped out.
Was deleted.
Scrubbed.
Correct.
Clean. And then you have this lawyer, Mrs. Katz. The lawyer, Miss Katz, who has the scary eyes, the scary liberal eyes, by the way.
Scary.
Where
with that
says the iris, shows.
When you see the whites above the irises, it means run away.
Yeah, it means run away. And this woman has that. And she also worked for the George Soros Open Society. So she has those ties. And then she has someone handling her, basically a handler, that worked with both Clinton and Obama. So you telling me that there's not a bias here?
Right.
And something is wrong here? I mean, come on.
You got to read between the lines.
Her demands are supposed to be ridiculous because they think the strategy is to push this off as long as possible to get past the elections so that when they take over the House, Trump will never get anyone confirmed anymore to the federal bench. But Chuck Grassley makes it painfully obvious that the GOP leadership are part of the kabuki theater. They go along with whatever the Democrats push forward.
Oh, yeah.
And, they kowtow to the Democrats, just like Paul Ryan does, just like McConnell does. None of the GOP leadership want to see Trump's agenda go through. They don't want to pay for the wall. They haven't put forth a penny towards that wall yet. They are fake, phony frauds.
They're going to try to push this to the midterms, and we'll talk about it with one of our guests coming up. But, you know, I said handler. What I meant to say was she has a special advisor that worked for under Clinton and Obama. What victim in any rape case or any abuse case has a special advisor? Does that even add up to you? I mean, it's clear that the Democrats have taken the ball over on the.
I think you were right the first time when you said handler.
Yeah,
that has something to do with a cultish situation.
So it's freaky, man. It really is. I want to come back. First, I want to tell you who the guests are going to be on today's program. We have Elena Maria Lopez, and she's a former journalist and citizen lobbyist and advocate. And she's presented to the White House false accusation and claims before and actually had them reversed. So it's going to be interesting to talk to her and see her side and what she thinks of this situation with Judge Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford. And then we also have Dan Perkins coming by. He contributes to LifeSet, Newsmax, The Hill, and The Daily Caller. And he's an expert. We're going to talk about Kavanaugh again. It's going to be Kavanaugh all day. That's kind of what it's going to be about. But listen, you're going to come back to us. Our morning show guy, Lee Elsey, last week was attacked on social media by a bunch of feminazis. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're also going to be talking about Donald Trump standing up via Twitter for Judge Kavanaugh. He's standing up for his pick. God bless the president. Come back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. WJJF on your FM dial. Listen, go to freedomondeck.com where you can check out our midweek podcast, or you can check out our Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter. You can go and look at all our stuff on BitChute and also on YouTube. It's a one-stop shop. It's got some interesting stuff over there. It's going to get better as time goes on. We're going to revamp it. We're going to put some interesting things that you can do on the page. We're not going to tell you what's going to happen yet, but
as long as all the archives are there, that's what it's really for.
The archives are there, but I want to do some other special things. So we'll revamp it in the wintertime, basically. So before I get into President Trump defending Judge Kavanaugh, I did want to talk about this because the guy that put us on the air, his name's Lee Elsey, and I know most of the listeners from Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island that are listening to us now, aside from those that are listening to us on via the internet, probably listen to Lee Elsey every day. And he's been doing fantastic. He's been filling in for Wayne Allen Root nationally. It's awesome. Seems like it's almost on a monthly to weekly basis now.
That's pretty cool.
He's doing very well. And what happened to him last Wednesday was when he does his show, he puts out a meme, or he'll show pictures of the people coming on the show, and he gives you a layout of who's coming on in the times and all that kind of stuff. And everybody gets on there and talks. I do it every day. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people get on there and go back and forth. And he put the meme out that showed a little 7-year-old boy grabbing another, looks like to be a 7-year-old girl's pigtails in class, and it says another one of Judge Kavanaugh's accusers come forward. Meant to be tongue-in-cheek, you know, fun, nothing. And first of all, it's not offensive at all. But the liberal lefties, the feminazis, came onto his page and started berating him and saying some things that weren't very flattering and totally untrue about the guy. The guy is a super dude, always defends children, women, and animals. I mean, he does that every day. Anybody that listens to Lee Elsey knows that that's how he is.
That's right.
But these women got into it. I got into it with one of them, and she, the last thing I said to her, pretty much shut her up. She hasn't responded to me since because I laid the smackdown on her. But to go after this guy, Lee, who, if you don't know him, he's the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. We've sat on Long Island before and done a show with him. We've sat down and talked with Lee. We've met him multiple times. Nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Wouldn't hurt a fly. Isn't an extreme right-winger.
No.
Wasn't defending rape or anything like that. But these people are so sick that now they come at you, and me and CV were talking about this on the Midweek podcast. No matter who you are, if you see things in the right perspective, they're going to come after you.
I mean, I understand where he's coming from, Lee, because they're trying to characterize him as something he's not.
Right. Exactly.
At the same time, you almost want to just tell him, shut up. You know what I mean? Just shut up. Nobody wants to hear it. You know, we've gotten to a point, like, you can't even joke with people today.
I know.
You can't say anything out of line. I mean, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, back in the day before he started doing movies and things, they were rough.
Raw. Eddie Murphy's specials used to be called Raw.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Exactly. You know, you had comedians that were pretty rough. I mean, you even had Andrew Dice Clay. I mean, some of these guys
couldn't exist nowadays.
Oh no! I mean, these guys were funny. People laughed, but they poked fun at a lot of things, you know. And that today you couldn't. I mean, oh my God, they would be convulsing in the streets, having seizures. They'll probably get on me for saying that. You know, it's gotten to a point where, you know, life is like this one gigantic tiptoe, walking on eggshells, day-to-day existence.
It absolutely is.
In America. And that was never America.
No. And CV, when I went back to this lady and I asked her about Keith Ellison and I presented her facts about Bill Clinton, and we all know what Bill Clinton did. He raped women. And her response to me was, well, they're not up for a lifetime appointment, and they're not deciding on women's health care rights. Immediately going down that path, you know, basically deflecting everything that I had presented to her. And I said, can you answer the question? I'm asking you a question here, and you're deflecting, and it's insanity.
Well, her argument doesn't address the fact that Ford is a big fat liar, and I'm allowed to say whatever I want to say, and I can think whatever I want to think, and I can feel whatever I want to feel. I'm tired of the left making these unwritten laws saying that you can't touch this sacred cow, you can't touch that sacred cow, you can't say anything about this person, or you can't say anything about a woman, because if you say anything about a woman, you're saying something about all women.
How dare you attack
How dare I?
That woman?
Because I'm the fearless one.
And you have to believe her, no matter what.
No, I don't believe her,
well,
and I'm
laughed,
not afraid to say it.
I laughed that Hillary even came out and said that you have to believe her. Really? Did you believe, Juanita Broderick?
And Paula Jones.
And what's her name? Flowers?
Jennifer Flowers. Let's go down the laundry list. Hillary. And Hillary
Did you believe
those women.
Oh, threaten them. Threaten them to harm them.
Not only did she not believe them, well, she believed them. She just wanted to kill their cat or their dog and threaten them and intimidate them from speaking.
No, she believed them and didn't want them to upset the apple cart that she was riding on.
Right, and she had a
which
deal,
is the Clinton Foundation.
She had a deal worked out with her husband Bill that he gets to molest women and she gets to molest women too.
Yeah, well, it's disgusting. The double standard is just it makes me mad. I'm telling you. Listen, come on back. We've got Elena Maria Lopez, citizen lobbyist, coming on, and this is going to be an interesting discussion. You don't want to go anywhere. This is Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now in stimulating talk. Chet Martin here, Brian Bro and C.V. Burton. You're rocking with the best in Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. WJJF on your FM dial. Our first guest on today's program is Elena Maria Lopez. Ms. Lopez is a citizen advocate, whistleblower, and expert on immigration fraud and domestic violence victims. She has submitted a series of false allegation cases to the White House. Welcome to the show, Elena.
Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Looking through your background, I was stoked to get you on, especially with everything that's been going on with Brett Kavanaugh, but we'll get into that later. Elena, why is the big gaping hole in our border security being ignored?
Well, actually, we've been putting all of our focus on illegal immigration and people sneaking in through the quote-unquote back door, and people are walking straight through the front door, getting legal papers, but fraudulently. And it's not a victimless crime.
So tell our listeners what you're doing with the White House officials to draw attention to this issue.
Well, because of my own case, I started collecting cases of other victims, and by chance I tripped over a collection of cases where people were making false abuse allegations, and based on law, they can get a fast-track green card. They could bypass background checks, hide criminal activities, and there are no evidence, interviews, or investigations required. Does anyone see a problem with that?
I see a problem. So what you're saying, is they claim domestic abuse and then are able to get into the country?
Right, but here's the problem. The cases I discovered by chance, I saw a collection of people that did all of that, bypassed all the proper vetting, and then they quickly married active military with high-level security clearances, often living on U.S. bases.
Is this a rampant problem?
I wouldn't say it's a rampant problem, but it's enough of a systemic problem that, every immigration fraud case doesn't look like that, but there are enough that cause concern so that when I got in touch with the FBI, they got back in touch with me immediately. They were very, very concerned about these collections of cases because you have people living on U.S. bases that the military thought they were properly vetted by the Department of Homeland Security, but they weren't, because they got these fast-track domestic violence green cards without evidence.
Now, Elena, you were a victim of domestic violence yourself. Tell our listeners what happened to you and how does the Violence Against Women Act play into marriage immigration fraud in the D.C. circles, Elena?
Well, what happened to me was I married a Dutch national thinking it was the real deal, and as soon as he got his green card, which would have been at our second anniversary, literally to the night of our second anniversary, all of a sudden he changed. He was like Jekyll and Hyde. He just came clean, said, I only married you for a green card. Hurry up and sign the divorce papers. I'm going to be a citizen, and just laughed in my face. And I was shocked. Like, I actually didn't believe it at the beginning.
Wow.
Because people just don't change like that overnight. But then I started noticing strange things like my finances had changed. The lease on my car had changed. He applied for credit in my name. And when I refused to continue signing off on any immigration paperwork, that's when he changed even further for the worse. He tried to strangle me. I had to barricade myself into a room while I called for the cops. And a week later, as I'm moving out my belongings, he came home early and threatened me with a firearm. So that's where the domestic violence comes in. And ironically, I had no protections from the Violence Against Women Act, none at all. But if I was a foreign national, I could make a whole bunch of claims. They didn't even have to be investigated, and I would get all of these levels of protection. And I was horrified because I said it wasn't about thinking that immigrants were getting more. It was like, no, just protect me. This guy is still trying to kill me. He's still threatening me. Please just do something to protect me. So I fled Pennsylvania, moved back to my home state of New Jersey. New Jersey took my case so seriously they put me in hiding for my safety.
Unreal. We have Elena Maria Lopez with us. Elena, false allegations are becoming an epidemic in America. A new study finds that nearly 1 of 10 sexual assaults are based on a false allegation. Tell us about some of the false allegation cases that you presented to the White House.
Well, some of the false allegation cases involved maybe the American citizen found out that there was a fraudulent marriage or that the immigrant was involved in criminal activities, including prostitution. One guy found out he was actually married to a Russian prostitute and that she was gaming the system and involved in other criminal activities. And the way that she could get out of jail free card was she quickly claimed domestic violence, because otherwise she would have been deportable. We're also talking about educated people. One is with an Eastern European lawyer who had multiple H-1B overstays, which make her an inadmissible alien by law. And then she tried to marry an American national. That still did not waive all of her overstays. So then she claimed domestic violence, and that was, once again, her get out of jail free card. But once you dig deeper, you realize that she was also involved in forgery, fraudulent statements. We found people that actually have false identities, and once they claim domestic violence, it gives them a get out of jail free card, and the Department of Homeland Security looks no further. They just issue the green card, and it's past the citizenship.
So it's a big loophole.
It is a huge loophole. But a lot of the cases I ended up presenting to the White House clearly involved the military threat, because so many of the cases were cookie cutter, like in terms of looking the same, in terms of how a foreign national came over here, all from the same country, and the first husband they targeted, and the second husband they targeted, how soon they did it, like the exact types of allegations they made. And then they all quickly remarried active military with high-level security clearances. And when I started seeing 2, 3, 4 cases like that, I was like, whoa. Once you start seeing more, you're like, somebody's writing a manual on this about how to pull this off.
It's unbelievable. Elena, I'm sure you've been watching the situation unfold with Judge Kavanaugh, with the rest of America. Given your background, does this stink of a false allegation?
Okay, on the record, I'm never going to make an opinion about whether it's a false allegation or not.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to say is, like you said, the organization SAVE says that 1 in 10 abuse allegations are false. Mm-hmm. And some of the reporters digging around due to the Duke lacrosse situation found that it was even up to 2 out of 10. Is that acceptable if we say that we accidentally throw, 2 out of 10 people in jail we threw in erroneously? Or 2 out of 10 people that go for surgery accidentally die? We would be horrified with that. But then look at the other side. We have a culture where Nicole Brown Simpson, when she was alive, even on the 9th phone call she made to police in Los Angeles, they still would not arrest him. Even though there was a visible blood, hand mark, she was half dressed, her clothes were ripped off. I mean, so we have to look at both of these circumstances. And how do you solve either one? Investigate. And that's where I come down. As I say, it doesn't matter whether you think it's false or not. I think the alleged abuser and the alleged victim both deserve the right to an investigation, because if Kavanaugh is innocent, he should demand an investigation, because only that would clear him. And same with Dr. Ford. I think she would feel she would only have due process if they actually launched a legitimate investigation outside of the Senate, outside of the partisan bickering.
Yeah, I agree with you. There needs to be a special counsel put in on this, and that's hopefully what will happen. But Elena, when somebody is cleared of false allegations, do they ever really move on from the negativity that's affected their life, or does it stick with them?
Do you mean if somebody's accused of false allegations?
No, if somebody is a victim of false allegations.
Oh, okay. No, they never really do. And that's what I'm dealing with, is a lot of the victims that I've dealt with, they've had to have exorbitant legal fees. A lot of them have lost custody of their children. They're within their own community. They have a bad reputation. So it's really not fair to either side to not launch investigation.
I think the point you brought up about O.J. Simpson's a good one, but that was over, how long ago was O.J. Simpson? That was 94? So you're going back close to 30 years. There's now, and I want to talk about the Me Too movement, Elena. There's now a culture of believing the accuser no matter what. And the left really pushes this. How dare can you question the accuser? How do we push back against this kind of mindset if it's always you can just say something and they're guilty automatically?
I'm from the left, and I've never pulled that card. Never once have I pulled that card. I've actually gone the opposite way, and I said, I don't expect you to believe me. I actually just expect you to investigate. And so, yeah, the Nicole Simpson case was 30 years ago, and that's horrific. Or it was 1994, yeah. That was absolutely horrific. But in my case, I had, I'm the Puerto Rican. I lived in suburban, sorry, I'm half white, so I can say this.
Okay. Be careful.
I know. I was raised by a white mother and a Puerto Rican father.
No problem.
So I lived in an area that was very rural, white, and everybody looked like my husband, so that when I called the police and said, and by the way, we have 10 minutes of a 911 tape where he's clearly threatening me and trying to break down the door, and I still couldn't get the police. The white police looked just like my white husband. I couldn't get them to even investigate. They just said, ma'am, there's nothing we can do. If you don't feel safe, you'll need to leave. You know, a week later with a firearm, you know, nothing again. And I'm like, this really isn't that far-fetched. We still see cases that some police departments arrest and don't even bother investigating, and some just kind of pass the buck. So there's no uniformity, and that's the problem still in this day and age.
You know, I have 3 boys of my own, Elena. And I worry about them going through life in a society where they have to worry about, you know, touching another classmate on the shoulder the wrong way or saying the wrong thing. Because, you know, I have 3 boys. Boys say and do things, especially when they're coming up in the age of puberty, that they're just, you know, their minds aren't there. And we all know it. All men have gone through that point of their life. And it just scares me that that people are willing to just jump off the handle and accuse somebody of something when there's no crime committed.
I mean, I think it should scare you, but if anything, it's an opportunity to say, look, how can we make sure that you're doing this in a way that's respectful, that nobody's going to take this the wrong way, and there's no guarantee that people aren't, and that's the shame. It's really a shame, because it's the same way when you raise girls. How do you raise them to protect themselves and realize what a safe boundary is, and all of those things? I mean, look, you can say, look, raising black men in America, black parents for years had to say, look, here's how, when you get pulled over by a cop, here's how you need to respond. I mean, it doesn't make everything right, but we're in a new reality due to Me Too. And the reason why that Me Too even exists is because for 30, 40, 50 years, we have turned a blind eye, both in the legal culture and the corporate culture. We have all of these cases where, like, Charlie Rose could do what he's done to interns and coworkers, as well as CBS, and everybody just turns a blind eye. That's not acceptable. But at the same time, I do understand that there's a real problem in terms of false allegations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, Elena, we only have we're under a minute now, but tell everybody where they can go check you out, please.
Okay, the easy name of my website, I am from New Jersey, is yolopez.com. You can put in my full name.com or yolopez.com. And you can go to saveservices.org for information on false allegations.
Everybody, that was Elena Maria Lopez, former journalist, citizen lobbyist, and advocate. And we thank her for coming by. Go check out everything she has to offer you. And come back to Freedom on Deck. We're going to be talking about this Maryland shooter with the legal firearm shooting up Rite Aid. Let's figure this all out. Come back to Freedom on Deck. Oh yeah, welcome back to Freedom on Deck. Thanks for being here with us on your Sunday. We also always value your listenership. Good show so far. You know, the media kind of went silent on this story. It's coming out of Maryland. A deadly shooting at a Rite Aid distribution center in Aberdeen, Maryland, Thursday morning shook the nearby community, whose residents described facility employees as tight-knit and nice. Alexi Sharman said her mother was working at the Liberty Support Facility, a portion of the distribution center, when shots started to ring out. There's not that many people that work there. Everybody is so nice over there. That's why it's a shock, Sharman told WBAL. Sharman revealed heart-stopping text messages she exchanged with her mom and sibling minutes before the shots were reported at 9 a.m. Another witness, only identified by his first name, Bo, told the news station he was a few blocks away from the shooting when he saw police cars and ambulance suddenly zip by. So we saw pictures of this suspect, and the whole thing was that supposedly the suspect had a concealed carry permit and a legal gun, and was transgendering from man to woman.
No, woman to man.
Woman to man. Okay, it's.
I think
the whole thing's confusing. It's.
But why Rite Aid?
She worked there.
She worked at Rite Aid?
Yeah.
So
yes.
Why go shoot up your work and the people you know? I don't understand it.
Well, the accounts are very vague here. There's not much here. I'm actually combing through some other sites here because that one was really bad. But went in, shot some employees up. Nobody died except for her or him transgendering because of self-inflicted gun wounds.
You know, the thing that bothers me about this whole thing. Now, there's obviously a different element here, or could be a different element with this woman transgendering into a man and other people vice versa. You know, you're playing with the human body. You're putting and introducing hormones that shouldn't be there on levels that a man's body or a woman's body normally does not deal with. You know, women have testosterone in their body, men have estrogen in their body, but it's on small levels.
Yeah.
It's from metabolizing one to the other. But when you put those high levels of estrogen into a man's body, or vice versa, high testosterone levels into a woman's body, there is a change that goes on. I mean, you think about weightlifters, right?
Yeah.
And you hear, now this is men injecting steroids, which are testosterone, into their body, and they deal with high levels of testosterone normally, and then they go and they put the even higher levels of testosterone in their body, and you get things like roid rage and aggression and all these different things, and and they're not ever really the same again.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's a good point.
When you put enough testosterone in a woman's body, enough to grow hair on her chest,
right?
How does that affect the mind?
That's right. How does that affect the thyroid or the pituitary gland or any of these other things in the brain that has to deal with hormones?
Well, we know it does affect you because it's altering who you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, it does. And I wanted to say this before we keep going on. I was wrong. 3 people did die.
Okay.
It was a 26-year-old woman who was working as a temporary employee, and her name was Snochia Mosley, 26, who, you were right, was transgendering from woman to man.
Right. So okay. she was injecting, probably either injecting or taking pills, high levels of testosterone, and a lot of times, these people that are transgendering, because they want it so badly, they may not be taking 1 pill or 2 pills a day or however many their doctor says. They might be doubling up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they might be abusing it, and and if a man can get roid rage from taking high levels of testosterone, why couldn't a woman?
Yeah, it says that Crystal Watson, 33, said her husband Eric works at the facility and told her that the shooter was a female coworker. Watson said her husband told her that the woman had been arguing with somebody else near a time clock after a town hall meeting, and she went off. Watson said her husband told her that the shooting started in a break room. She didn't have a particular target. She was just shooting, Watson said, as she drove away from the fire station where relatives tried to reunite with loved ones. She didn't aim. She just shot. So she got into some kind of altercation after this.
Enraged.
Yeah, enraged about something.
The roids got her.
See, Brian's theory is definitely, his theory is definitely plausible, but there may be another factor, like that argument, for example. When they don't tell you what the argument was about, my mind immediately goes to anti-Trump. Because anytime it's not a Muslim shooting up people, it's usually a left-wing radical who is ginned up to violence by the left-stream media. And that's how it looks to me.
You might have a point there, because after a town hall meeting, it sounds like maybe this was political.
Could be.
Argument at the water cooler.
Yeah, what do they talk about around the water cooler? Everybody's talking about Trump.
Or the economy, or what's going on, politics.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh. Could be. Hey, that's how it's on everyone's mind.
Could be. Also, could be this. Let's face it. Somebody that has gender dysmorphia thinks that there's something they're not, probably isn't altogether there mentally.
No, right, they have a mental health issue.
I think they have a mental health issue going on, and that could be a factor.
But the left stream media is constantly pounding it into everybody's head that Trump is anti-gay or anti-transgender, anti-all that. And he's not. He never once said anything against that community. But she might have taken offense over a Trump supporter.
Well, we don't know that.
We don't know.
No. I'm
just
saying
speculation.
May.
These are all theories.
It sounds like it could be a political issue when it says after a town hall meeting. I mean,
it sounds like a really bad mixed drink.
Unless a town hall meeting is something that Rite Aid employees have, which I don't think. That's what I'm saying. These news reports, they're all foggy. They don't tell you anything.
They don't tell you the motive, and that's suspicious.
Well, I don't know if they know the motive. She's dead. And the people are dead.
Well, there's got to be people that were there or heard it, or there's got to be. Usually, there are cameras in break rooms and things like that.
Well, they have pictures of the most of the people that were shot are black. Just so you know,
I'm sure that guy Bo knows the motive, but they left it out.
I mean, the reality of most. Listen, I don't know what happened here. I can't say, but it's disgusting, and it's got to stop. That's for sure. Well, anyway, guys, we're going to come back to Dan Perkins, contributor to LifeSet, Daily Caller, Newsmax, and The Hill, and we're going to be talking about a little more with Judge Kavanaugh. We're beating the dead horse here, but I think it's something that we need to talk to about with him, because he's a guy that knows his stuff, and he can shed a new light on this whole thing. So anyway, come on back to Freedom on Deck.
Is this some conspiracy? Crucified for no sins.
Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk, WJJF on your FM dial. Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. You're rocking with the best, of course. Chet Martin, Brian Bro, and C.V. Burton. Make sure you go to freedomondeck.com. Everything's there for you. All our social media sites, all our midweek podcasts, and all of our terrestrial backtracks are there as well, where you can go listen to that anytime you want. The next guest of today's program is a contributor to the Daily Caller, LifeSet, Newsmax, and The Hill, and also a best-selling author. Welcome back to the show, because we've had him on once before, Mr. Dan Perkins. Dan, thanks for coming on with us.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Now, I'm sure you've been all over the Kavanaugh-Ford saga, which is what I call it now. That's all everybody's talking about. It's all we've been talking about today. What do you make of Chuck Grassley giving Christine Ford more time after missing the Saturday deadline, and now, from what I'm reading via The Blaze, is that Christine Ford will be testifying sometime this week?
Well, first of all, this is I'm about to say something that I'm sure you've not heard anywhere else about this. Okay, you ready?
Sure.
This is a terrorist attack on the Senate. This is a terrorist attack on the Senate, and the Democrats are responsible for it, and the attorneys for her are in total collusion. And this delaying tactic, when Chairman Grassley said that we were going to do the hearing on Monday, the attorney immediately came back and said, that's arbitrary, we don't have to go. We have an individual who is trying to set the agenda for the Congress and specifically the Senate Judiciary Committee. She is trying to dictate the terms and conditions of her possible appearance. And I think that this is basically a power play to intimidate the Republicans on the side of the Republicans on the committee, and possibly Judge Kavanaugh. But in reality, this is all about delaying, hoping that somebody else will come out.
Is it a delay tactic to push it on until the midterms?
No. It is a delaying tactic specifically to try and find somebody else who will collaborate a similar event or some kind of event in Kavanaugh's life. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet, with all of the Democratic operatives trying to find it, she finally had to capitulate. But she says, quote, that she will testify based on certain representations and conditions yet to be described. She put out a whole list of conditions before. Now, what we don't know, has she walked away from those and started a new list of things that she wants? But I don't know, because nobody knows what she wants or what conditions are. But it's clearly, if you read seriously what's being said, she would appear if these conditions were met. And I suspect that Chairman Grassley has had it up to his eyeballs, and he's going to have if we're either going to have on Thursday now a hearing where she's going to have her opportunity to speak her piece, and then after that he'll have an opportunity to respond, or we're going to have a vote on confirmation, one or the other.
Now, Christine Ford claims that Judge Kavanaugh sexually accosted her 36 years ago at a party, but can't remember the place, date, or details. Why would she sit on this, Dan, for, over the years, even as President Bush enacted him as a judge, unless these are false allegations? I can't think of why somebody would sit on this for 36 years.
I did a piece on this on Newsmax earlier in the week, and I what I'm about to say will answer your question. There was a part of my research was a study done by Dr. Andrew White for the National Institute of Health on binge drinking of teenagers and college students. And one of the things that he talks about in his article is that binge drinking has great impact on memory recall and memory in general. Now, if you think about all the things that have been said about Judge Kavanaugh that supposedly took place in this, she's told us, you're right, she doesn't know how she got to the party. She doesn't know how she got home from the party. She doesn't know when the party took place or where it took place. But you know what nobody's asked her? Were you drunk at the time?
Right. Good
Nobody
point.
said a word about her alcohol consumption. And I hope if she does testify that some senator or the chief counsel who she's, I believe, very much concerned about, and the Democrats are too, because she's a woman, somebody's got to ask the question, were you drinking?
Well, Dan,
were you inebriated?
Dan, you even had a friend of hers that tried to corroborate her story, even had to retract and took down her statement on Facebook, saying that, you know, she was at the party and all this other stuff, when people came out and questioned it and said, no, you weren't, you know, and she basically said, you know, she took it down and said, well, you know, I wasn't prepared for all the media attention. I'm getting contacted by media and all this other stuff, and that's why I took down the post. I think it's because she lied and she got in over her head, and it was the only one person that was actually, you know, corroborating what Dr. Ford was saying.
And she recanted her comments. So,
and she recanted.
Right. And so all of these delaying tactics and all these crazy demands are all to buy Tom, not to take it to the midterm election, but take it to a point to give somebody out there, if they were ever assaulted by him. And I have to say something here, because I am really, really, really angry about what I'm about to say. I watched Democratic operative after Democratic operative on television this past week saying that Judge Kavanaugh raped her. Used those words. He raped her. And there was a woman on Tucker Carlson's show this week, and she made that she said that. He said, stop. He didn't rape her. You're saying that he raped her, but she didn't say he raped her.
Right.
She was concerned if it went long enough, she might have been raped. So we have the media talking about things that they don't know anything about, never happened. The other thing that I'm really pissed about is that Dianne Feinstein, who had this letter since July, has yet to honor the request of the chairman of the Judiciary Committee for a clean copy of the letter. All he's gotten from her is a redacted copy.
Dan, am I paranoid to think that the Never Trumpers in the Senate are going along with these delaying tactics, trying to look like they're being, fair and reasonable, but are really just, they're not interested in the Trump agenda, and they're trying to derail this thing? Am I just paranoid?
Well, I think a lot of us, myself included, are a little paranoid about the reality of what's going on here, because the Constitution of the United States is under vicious attack right now. The idea that we take the Constitution and turn it around saying that the accuser goes last and the accused has to go first and doesn't know what the charges are. Constitution says you are entitled, as somebody who's being accused, to know what the charges are being brought against you so you can respond. And her lawyers said they want it the other way around. They want Kavanaugh to go first and then she'll speak. Why? What is so? You keep looking at all these pieces and the attack on this is the real issue is the attack. And what we have here is an example, not of he said, she said, but as a terrorist attack on an individual perpetrated by people who, at least at the moment, have no facts to substantiate their charge. If I said to you that I sent a letter to my congressman and I said, I have been told by a reliable source in Chicago that Barack Obama was gay and had a sexual liaison in Las Vegas on all the trips that he went there.
Yeah, they wouldn't take that very well.
No, but the point is, that's what's happening here, is that there was a situation where she believes something happened. He doesn't even believe he was there or was involved with this woman. But what I'm saying is the facts are no longer relevant. Hillary Clinton said this week she should be believed because she's a woman.
Oh, she's one to talk.
Yeah, right. Therefore, because she's a woman, she's entitled to be. And you know, the Keith Ellison's the woman who he attacked.
Yeah.
She said this week, where is my FBI investigation? Juanita Broderick, who was raped by Bill Clinton, where is my FBI investigation? We're talking about physical violence against a woman, and yet the president of the United States got off scot-free. He went to an impeachment trial, but he was still, and in many cases, still a god who was in the Democratic Party. I mean, if you ever want to look at a double standard, I mean, what we're talking about is the logic that says that an individual who's been nominated to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, who's been vetted 6 times by the FBI, and they have found nothing against him, now because he is being nominated to the highest court in the land, all of a sudden we have to destroy him so he is prevented getting on because of one thing. The left is absolutely terrified that he will be responsible for overturning Roe versus Wade.
That's all that it comes down to, doesn't it, Dan?
Absolutely. And I mean, I've studied this for a long time, this whole Democratic situation. And just if I could just take a moment.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 40 years, the Democratic Party, regardless of whether or not they held the White House or the majority in the House or the Senate, has been in charge. And every time a Republican got off the plantation and tried to have a little backbone, they persecuted him. Bush 41, Bush 43. They destroyed Bush 43's presidency. They attacked him, even after 9/11. So the strategy, the playbook was, if you're a Republican and you get elected to the Congress, the playbook is, if the Democrats don't like you and they come after you, you have to capitulate and go hide. Until Donald Trump came in. Donald Trump said, no more. We're not going to do that. I'm going to stand up to the Democrats. And so he said, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going to go after them. I'm going to defend my country, defend myself and my people, and we're not going to stand for the attack. And so he blew up the playbook, and the Democrats are still trying to figure out why they can't control him. Let me give you an example of this very week. This week, yesterday, maybe even today, I read it today. Chuck Schumer said to the President of the United States, you cannot fire. Remember, you cannot. I'm telling you, you cannot fire Rosenstein based on this New York Times article. Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, is saying to the President of the United States, regardless of whether what he said was true or not, you can't fire Rosenstein.
Dan, we have to wrap it up. I'm sorry, we're coming up against the break. Can you tell everybody where to go check you out, please?
DanPerkins.guru, G-U-R-U. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you very much, everybody. That was Dan Perkins. I'm sorry we had to cut him short. I know he's getting into some good stuff there, but we have time constraints. Come on back to Freedom on Deck, because we are going to be talking about the woman that stabbed these infants over in Queens, New York. Come back to F.O.D. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck, 94.9 News Now, and stimulating talk. Chet Martin, Brian Burrow, C.V. Burton. The crew is here. We're going to talk a little bit of a disturbing crime that happened in New York. A Queens facility that serves as a boarding house for Chinese tourist babies became a scene of horror early Friday when a worker stabbed 3 newborns. Absolutely sickening. And 2 adults there before trying to kill herself. Police and sources said she slashed her wrists, by the way. The carnage happened at around 3:45 a.m. in the 3-story home in Flushing, where workers provide care to babies born in the U.S. in exchange for thousands of dollars. One of the employees, identified by law enforcement sources as Yu Fen Wang, went berserk and attacked a 63-year-old colleague, a 30-year-old man. Officials said Wong, 52, then stabbed 3 baby girls, a 3-day-old, a 2-week-old, and a 1-month-old, sources said. The injured man who was struck in the ankle is the father of one of those babies, and the injured colleague suffered wounds to her torso. Police said Wong, who sources said has physical problems, psychological problems, then fled to the basement of the brick home on 161st Street and slit her left wrist. Police discovered her unconscious and used a tourniquet to stem her bleeding. They found a butcher knife and meat cleaver at the scene. Okay, so this woman goes and commits this horrendous act, but the strangest thing about this is what I read is that this is a loophole for Chinese immigrants to go and have babies under a visa, leave the country, and then they can come back and get citizenship because the child's here. It's just the most bizarre thing that I've ever read, you know, coming into this story and finding out what they're doing at these facilities throughout New York and the country. That's pretty scary. I mean, you know, it's something that I wasn't expecting out of this story towards the end, reading about that.
Yeah, it's hard enough to determine who's insane that was already born here and put them in some kind of facility, although they don't have those facilities anymore. But then to bring people in that are not vetted, and some of them are absolutely insane, and nobody knows it. That's another reason why I believe in Trump's extreme vetting policy.
It's a good point you make, too. The shutting down of these mental health facilities by our illustrious Mayor de Blasio has put a lot of these people out on the streets. And from what I'm reading here, though, this woman is an illegal immigrant that committed this act.
Yeah. I don't know. It's sad. It's sad. You know, this is why, you know, a wall on the southern border wouldn't stop this, but this is why we have to start looking at these countries that were allowing people to come here with visas. You know, Trump did it. I mean, look at what the left did when he did it with Middle Eastern countries. I mean, their heads exploded. But it's a good thing that maybe we need to just, across the board, slow down on who we're letting in here.
Oh, absolutely.
Across the board, cut back on these visas. I think we issued like 1 million a year, right?
A lot.
Let's bring it down to like 250,000. Okay? And we won't be having Yu-Fed Wang or Wang coming in here.
Another liberal policy is the 1965 Immigration Act, which says that 85% of all immigration has to come from third world countries, and only 15% annually can come from Europe. That, to me, that's prejudice.
It is prejudice. And it shouldn't happen. But listen, we're going to come back. A congressman mocked Senator Collins, who I'm not a big fan of, but mocked Senator Collins over threats she received on whether she's going to vote for Judge Kavanaugh to be sworn in as a Supreme Court justice. Sick. Come back to Freedom on Deck. No games played here. Schwab the deck, mateys. It's Freedom on Deck. Oh, man, it's been a great show, but we've had this fly in the studio that's been driving us nuts. During the interviews, you could actually hear the fly buzz around my microphone. And Brian had a laughing fit while
I did not laugh
while Dan Perkins was on.
I was about to,
and I luckily
every time it landed on your mic, it was like,
yeah, it was annoying.
And Chet's face was getting pissed.
I was getting mad.
It's like a Warner Brothers cartoon in here.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So Rep. Swalwell deleted his initial tweet and apologized for diminishing death threats to Senator Collins. Senator Collins. You all know who Senator Collins is. I'm not a big fan. But also made the excuse that he was just upset that, in his opinion, the victim's safety has been ignored in the case of Blasey Ford. He said on his apology tweet after he basically scoffed at Susan Collins' death threats, he said, "Yes, no one should make threats. This is a democracy. Be loud and be heard. We don't use violence. I didn't mean to suggest that, but I'm pissed how the victim's safety has been ignored and the rush to confirm has been prioritized. Why not offer the witness security?" Well, Rep. Eric Swalwell downplayed these death threats that Senator Susan Collins has been receiving Thursdays. He belittled her experience and compared it to the death threats received by Christine Blasey Ford, the woman accusing Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual harassment. "My office has received some pretty ugly voicemails, threats, terrible things said to my staff," Collins said in an interview. So it's okay that Senator Collins gets these death threats because she's a Republican, but it's not okay for Blasey Ford. And by the way, a lot of the Democrats and the folks on the left are screaming out about Blasey Ford getting death threats, and they said she had to move because of these death threats. But guess what happened also? Brett Kavanaugh's wife, Judge Kavanaugh's wife, and family have received death threats. Whether the left wants to downplay it or not, whether the media wants to report on it or not, it has happened. His wife and his children have nothing to do with this, whether these are false allegations or whether by chance, which I don't believe it's true at all, Brett Kavanaugh did this 36 years ago, which we don't even really know what he did or when it happened or what time it happened or where it happened. But his wife and his children should not receive death threats because of an allegation of something that maybe happened 36 years ago, Brian.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, when you think about it. I mean, Donald Trump nominated him to that position, and his two girls and his wife, they're just his children and his wife. I mean, why would you threaten this man's family? Why would you threaten the senator? Why would you threaten, Dr. Ford? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me why anybody would threaten any of them. Stupid.
Well, because that's what the Democrats do.
It's morons. They're all morons. The people that are threatening the three different people are idiots. This is why I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. I think that everyone should have the right to pack heat. You want to threaten my family? Come get some, bum chum.
Absolutely.
I'll put two right in you.
Well, here's what he actually initially said on Twitter. This is Swalwell's initial tweet. "Boo-hoo-hoo," Swalwell responded. "You're a senator who police will protect. A sexual assault victim can't sleep in her home tonight because of threats. Where are you sleeping? She's on her own while you and your Senate GOP colleagues try to rush her through a hearing." You see, this is the madness. They want to make it seem like the Republicans are rushing to have this hearing in order to confirm Kavanaugh when they held tight for 36 years on a story and didn't release it right before he was approved for his Supreme Court nomination.
I mean, listen.
Isn't that a total double standard?
I mean, I think
everything they say is ironic.
I think anyone that has half a mind and that can add 2 + 2 can see that what this is. I mean, without a doubt, we've been talking about it the whole show. This is a hit piece. It's a hit job. Bottom line, she didn't hold on to this for 36 years because 36 years ago, nothing happened. And all it takes is somebody like George Soros or the DNC who rally their political operatives to fork money over to some person that'll stand in the void, so to speak, and say this happened to me. Doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't.
And with enough money, there's a lot of people that'll do things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you know Soros and say, all right, hey, you know what? You went to school with him. Yeah, you don't really like him. Yeah, you're, this happened or that happened or whatever the case is, and you're on the left. Well, how about $1 million? Would you say this thing happened to you for $1 million?
It's not Soros himself. It's his operatives that obviously have. They already have their hand in the cookie jar in this whole thing. We know that her lawyer worked for the George Soros Open Society. So she already has ties with George Soros.
Correct.
Who has ties with Move On. Mm-hmm. And if you saw that video that Move On released.
Disgusting.
Oh, my God. It was, well produced. These folks produce things very well, CV. And I'll tell you, when you watch that video, it's like Steven Spielberg directed the thing.
Lisa Bloom was caught offering $100,000 or to pay off somebody's mortgage leading up to the November 8th election in 2016 to accuse Donald Trump. This is what they do.
That's right.
I
forgot about that.
I'm sure Ford is being paid money for this.
We know that they pay these people money. You had people being paid to go into the Kavanaugh hearing and create a ruckus. They actually had the pictures of these people actually handing them money. And the same woman is being taken out by by the White House officers. You know what I mean?
Now,
it's
supposedly this Blasey Ford, from what I understand, went to a lot of anti-Trump rallies and was
holding
signs, vagina hat on her head, and supposedly, from what I understand, she made vagina hats and sold them herself.
But this BS with this
the vag hats.
This BS
you can get a Ford sign like a MAGA hat.
I don't know.
Signed by Trump.
I don't know.
You can get a pussycat hat with a signed by Ford.
I don't know.
This BS being threatened, with violence is such an old ploy. The Democrats are always playing to the courtroom of public opinion, and the guy from Shark Tank used to say, during the debates with Trump and Hillary, he was there in the audience saying Trump supporters were sending him death threats. They're just casting aspersions, trying to make Trump supporters or Kavanaugh supporters look like thugs.
You mean Mark Cuban?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Cuban. That guy is such a jerk.
He has no testicles. The thing is that I worry about senators like Susan Collins and Jeff Flake and these types because
that's an appropriate name for him.
Yeah, I know. And these types that may get these types of threats on social media, and that could swing them to go the other way because they're already so don't eat flaky. Pardon the pun. They're already flaky.
Somebody should tell them, listen, you don't have to live up to your name.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, with somebody like Susan Collins or Jeff Flake or Senator Graham, they can hold out. And,
you want to know something? He must be behind in the polls. Is Graham up for re-election in November?
Oh, yeah.
Because
he's starting to make sense.
Exactly.
And
I'm going
scary.
Wait a second.
That's true.
I'm like,
he's like pro-Trump now.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's like, if she doesn't come on Monday, we should just vote on Wednesday. And I'm going like, what?
Well, his pal.
Who are you and what have you done with Lindsey Graham?
His pal McCain is no longer with us, so now he feels alone.
Well, he's no longer in the coat rack making out with John behind the scenes.
Oh,
because I always kind of felt like they had a too close relationship, and we know that Lindsey has certainly been in the closet his whole life. Just listen to when Lindsey talked.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But what I'm saying is the Republicans. You don't know who's going to come out and and turn et tu, Brute. You know, who's going to come out?
Mitt Romney.
Flake has already said
it. If Mitt Romney wins, he's going to be the thorn in the side now.
Well, Flake already said it. That if she wants to testify and that they don't allow her to testify, he's going to vote no.
I'm fine with her testifying, but it's got to be under the right pretense.
And it can't be without, certain things. Can't be with things that are a violation of anyone's constitutional right.
She doesn't have a leg to stand on. She should be ignored.
Well, she should be, but, we're going to have to hear from her this week. Hopefully it will happen in the right way, and hopefully Mr. Kavanaugh will be confirmed. That's all I hope happens here. But listen, come on back to Freedom on Deck. We're talking about the woman that accused Keith Ellison of abuse. Describe how Democrats smeared, threatened, and isolated her. And Brian just pulled up the pictures that were taken by the doctors of this woman, and it's disgusting. Come on back to Freedom on Deck. Oh, yeah. Final thoughts for Freedom on Deck. Talking about these double standards of the Democrat Party and where it's going. But, we have talked about this throughout the program. Keith Ellison, the woman who accused the Minnesota Democrat rep, Keith Ellison, of domestic abuse, said on Monday that Democrats don't believe her story and threatened to isolate her over the allegations. Karen Monahan, a former girlfriend, came forward last month alleging that Ellison sent her threatening text messages and once screamed obscenities at her as he dragged her off a bed by her feet. Ellison has denounced the accusations, saying he never behaved this way. He did acknowledge that he was in a relationship with the woman. The allegations didn't lead to immediate action against the congressman, except for the announcement that the Democrat National Committee, DNC, would review the accusations. By the way, he chairs the DNC. He went on to win the Democratic primary election for Minnesota Attorney Governor. Now, this poor girl, Monahan, and she's one of the two women that he abused, by the way. There's a second victim that worked for his campaign. Talk about these photos that you dug up that were taken.
I'll tell you what.
By I believe, were they taken by the police or taken by the doctors?
Probably by the doctors, it looks like.
It looks
now,
like that.
I mean, or could have been the police. I mean, you never know. I could just tell you this. I mean, I've been into a couple of skirmishes with guys, and
not women,
and no, and I've been in a couple skirmishes over my course of my life, and blow for blow and things like that. Nobody walked away looking like that.
That picture you showed me.
Okay, her whole side of her face,
lumpy, is
black and blue. I mean, from her temple to her chin is just swollen and black and blue. Her eye completely, not just partially, I'm talking completely, is bloodshot. The white of her
it's
right
bloodshot.
eye
Completely red.
I mean, not a little bit like somebody smoked some weed and forgot their Visine at home. Like he exploded her face.
Like he broke her eye socket.
I mean, I'm telling you.
Well, how about all the good liberal Democrats that are listening right now, if there are any?
Yeah, right.
Or anybody that even kind of doubts what happened with Keith Ellison. Why don't you Google the pictures of these women that were abused by Keith Ellison, because it's easy to find. Go and look it up, and then I want some outrage.
Yeah, what they do?
I want some outrage.
They fell.
And he's
they
running.
Slipped on the ice.
And he's running for attorney general in Minnesota. And by the way, he's a good Muslim that's involved with CAIR. Sorry I had had to say it. I'm sure his good book excuses his behavior, doesn't it?
Oh boy!
Doesn't his good book excuse his behavior?
Well, the good Dems. You know how they are. They do not like to go after their own kind.
Because
and I'm
they're
talking
hypocrites.
about they love Muslims.
These Democrat hypocrites are goose-stepping goons, man, with their pile-on tactics and their collective mentality. I hate them. I loathe them.
Here, from BizPac Review, Keith Ellison was pounded about abuse. I'm sure Keith Ellison's used to being pounded at a debate. Watch and blame accusers say
Only during spirit dinners.
he says women can make things. But here's his statement from the debate when he was challenged. Women can make things up.
Oh, yeah.
Really? On the heels of what Brett Kavanaugh did, Congressman Keith Ellison, who's currently running to serve as Minnesota's next attorney general, which he's probably going to win because Minnesota's upside down, has vehemently denied these allegations. During a post-primary debate Friday evening on Twin Cities' PBS Almanac program, one of the moderators noted that 40% of Minnesota voters considered these allegations against the congressman to be a factor. So, when he got challenged by his opponent, a Republican, they were talking about Amy Alexander. Ellison first said, that was a case in 2005 when she was harassing me and my staff. I got an order for protection to have her not do it anymore. That's the woman that you pulled up with that large lumped face.
Yep.
That's the other woman. The judge awarded that in 2006 when I was running for Congress. She filed a claim. It was denied by the judge for the order of protection. And then we went to a hearing and the judge said she was ordered to stop making the falsehoods against me and not contact me at all. The evidence did not necessarily bear out to the narrative in a column Alexander penned. In May, Keith wanted to try and quiet me. This is from her. So he came to my home uninvited. He had words. His anger kicked in. He berated me. He grabbed me and pushed me out of the way. I was terrified. I called the police, and he fled and broke my screen door, and I've never been so scared. And, the thing is, he says that this is an independent investigation, and his Republican challenger, that's an ice maker, his Republican challenger said, it is not an independent investigation. This is the DNC that's holding this investigation. How can you say that it's being properly ran? And you know what? Disgusting that they actually have the evidence through police files and through medical files that show that this man abused these women in such a disgusting manner, and nobody's saying anything. And he has the nerve to say women can make things up, as I'm sure he is berating Judge Kavanaugh.
Women can make things up, but the only difference in this case, as you said, is that there are medical records that prove it. There's videotape that proves it. There are pictures that prove it. There's a 9/11 call that proves it. Mm-hmm. In this case, there's actual evidence.
Big time. I mean, those photos that Brian showed me are disturbing. And I wouldn't want any woman to go through that. And the fact of the matter is, one of these women worked for his campaign staff. And when she came forward with the evidence, she was attacked by the Democrats.
Yeah, the Democrats disbelieved her.
So they disbelieved her.
Yeah.
And told her
Come on.
she had nothing to show because it was Keith Ellison. And the excuse is, well, he's not running from a lifetime position like Judge Kavanaugh is.
Because he's a Democrat.
Listen, the Democrats have a way about them. They've always operated this way. Look at the way Hillary has shut up so many women that Bill Clinton has raped and assaulted. And they are just silenced. It's the DNC way. If let's talk about the slush fund for a second. Let's talk about the slush fund that Congress has.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I know where you're going.
That the taxpayers, you and I, are paying for.
Yep.
So that they could shut up women who have been sexually assaulted by these perverts.
Great point.
That are in office.
Yeah, and
let me tell you something. The DNC coffers of that little slush fund are deep. I wonder why.
And why aren't we having the FBI, and why aren't they demanding that the FBI open an investigation into that slush fund? Because they got to investigate a 36-year-old case against Judge Kavanaugh, which may or may have not happened.
Because if Congress got one, the Senate's got one. And if the Senate's got one, the FBI has one, and the CIA has one.
No, I get it.
They probably all have one.
And it's only designed to protect Democrats, probably.
So for all you folks out there listening that are on the sidelines and you're saying you're not really sure what's going on here, the writing's on the wall. The Democrats choose to go after Judge Kavanaugh because it's political. They don't care whether he's guilty or not. It has nothing to do with that. But when they look at these photographs that show you clear evidence that she was beat, by the way, there are police records that corroborate what these
talking
photos,
about Ellison's victims.
Yeah, Ellison's victims that corroborate the fact that, yes, these pictures line up with the abuse from Keith Ellison, and they make the excuse that, well, it doesn't really matter because he's not up for a lifetime position that'll take away women's rights to have abortions. That's what this is all about. It's all about Roe versus Wade. And secondly, Judge Kavanaugh is not going to take away your rights to Planned Parenthood abortions. I'm just going to say it like that. As much as I'd like him to,
man.
As much as I would love him to, it can't happen. He's not going to be able to do it because we all know that it's state by state. State by state. So it can't happen like that.
It's just sick. It's just sick how much they're willing to fight to kill.
Yeah.
They go for the jugular.
And how many and babies, we have to assume half of them are women, half of them are girls.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the outrage for killing all these innocent girls?
Right.
And let's not forget the
Where's that
Republicans.
outrage?
Let's not forget the Republicans are giving into them. Whose side are they really on?
Well, that's going to be you see, CV, that's what we're going to find out this week. And we're going to have that midweek podcast, which I think is going to be really important because hopefully we'll hear everything from Blasey Ford and from Kavanaugh at that point. But, and
I hope Ryan joins us.
Well, we're gonna see if he does, but we need to keep our eye on the ball and keep our fist in the game. Come on back next week, same Freedom time, same Freedom station. This is Freedom on Deck, and everybody out there, have an excellent, good day.